Hi everyone, welcome to the Sip and Spin. I am the Tipsy Spinster, and this is my fifth Tour de Fleece. The Tour de Fleece, of course, holds a very special place in my heart because this is when I started my channel. So this is also the fifth anniversary of the Sip and Spin. This is also the first year where I have finally gotten myself organized. I have all of my spinning goals, my wine and recipe goals, and my tool goals on this calendar, which also shows the wine regions that the cyclists are going through. I do have a blank version of this on my link tree. So if you're over on my Instagram, and I can put a link in the description as well. So if you'd like a blank copy of this for yourself to write in your own plan for this year's Tour de Fleece, I did make one available to you. One of the other things that I really like about the Tour de Fleece running in conjunction with the Tour de France is the opportunity to dive in and really learn about the regions and the culture that the cyclists are going through. This year, the Tour de France is starting in the Basque region of Spain, and that is the northern part of Spain. It's on the coast, so there are a lot of recipes that have seafood in them. Yay! And so I was really excited about doing some research on this. And so of course, I will be doing some spinning today, but I am also going to be doing a little bit of cooking as well. So a little bit of background before I jump in as my oil is heating up. The Basque region of Spain is one of the oldest cultures in the world. It predates Roman civilization, and their language is very unique as well. It's not based in Latin like the Romance languages, French, Spanish, or Italian. It has its own, it's called Euskara, and it has its own, it's called a linguistic isolate. And so I'm going to apologize now for some of the mispronunciations. Their letters don't quite, they're interesting the way their letters work. So the recipe that I'm making today is a traditional tuna stew or a tuna hot pot, and it is called Marmitako. And I will be including, as well as drinking with it, TX is CH, so this is Chacole, which is a white wine. It has hints of lemongrass and vanilla. It has a very strong bite to it. I can really taste the tannins in it. So it's going to be interesting to see how this works in the recipe as well as how it tastes as I am enjoying the food. So let's go ahead and get started cooking. This is the first time I've ever tried to do like a cooking thing on here, so be kind with your feedback, please. I went ahead and divvied everything up. The recipe that I'm using is a recipe from a couple different places. This is a regional specialty, so of course the ingredients are going to change based on where you are. But if you want to look, these are the basics. So we're starting with shallots and peppers. We've also got carrots, potatoes. The leeks I have soaking. You know, you always want to soak your leeks to get any sand out of some of the ridges that are in there. So the leeks are soaking. Tomatoes, high quality paprika, olive oil, and Cal Virgin is one of my favorite olive oil companies. Parsley, a little bit of stock, some white wine, and brandy, and that pretty much is what makes up, of course, salt and pepper, and then the tuna goes in at the very end. I'm going to go ahead and get this started, and I'll check back after we've been simmering for a little while. That way you don't have to watch me standing at the stove and sauteing. So I'll be back in just a couple minutes. broth, the wine, and a little bit of brandy. So there's really no other seasoning other than Hungarian paprika. For those of you that have been following me, my mom brought me some Hungarian paprika back, and the flavors are absolutely divine. So I love finding recipes where I can use paprika. Now, because the first 3 days of the Tour de France are in Spain, I'm going to focus on Spanish dishes for those first 3 days, but the remainder of the tour, I will probably be pulling most of my recipes from the French Market cookbook because that has regional favorites as well. That's the one that I used for a lot of recipes last year, and I was very, very pleased with them. So as this simmers, and it's going to simmer for a little while before I put the tuna in, as this simmers, I'm going to go ahead and get set up for my spinning today. I'll be back in just a second. So as the Marmitako is, So as the Marmitako is cooking on the stove, I'm going to go ahead and get in some spinning today. So in looking at my calendar, today and tomorrow are both hilly days, and on the hilly days I have decided to use my EEW6 because while those hilly days can be fast days, they're also kind of challenging, and so I set my challenge up to get through as many braids as I possibly could on those hilly days. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the dress that I'm wearing. This is the dress that I ended last year's tour with. It's the Charm Artist's apron, and I did it in Tour de France jersey colors. So the polka dots represent King of the Mountain. The pockets, which are holding tools that I'm going to be using in just a second. These are the points pocket. The green jersey is for the person who holds the most points at any given time. And then, of course, the main body of the dress is yellow for the maillot jaune, which is the leader. Whoever is currently leading the Tour de France gets to wear the yellow jersey. So this is kind of my fun take on the Tour de France colors. So looking at what I have planned for the next 2 days, I want to spin through these braids. This is the first braid from Fossil Fibers. It is In the Midnight Hour Rebel Yell. It's a combination of Blue Face Leicester and silk. And when you open the braid up, you see that there are all of these wonderful different colors, and there are so many different ways to spin a braid like this. I could open it up and just start here and work my way through. Oh, we have random fiber from something else. Opening it up, or what I am going to do, because I like spinning with Rolags just a little bit better, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up and I am going to create Rolags just from the braid. And in doing so, I'm going to keep some of these colors a little bit more consistent. And then I will go back and actually, I'm going to split this in half. And then I'll go back and do it as a 2-ply. I could do this as a gradient, in which case I would be splitting it in half and then continuing to split 1/2 into consecutive halves. I know that sounds really confusing when you're saying it, but you would get smaller and smaller sections of color that would then form a gradient at the end. All right, so I have I'm going to rebraid this one for now. So where hand crocheting comes in really handy. All right, so this is rebraided, and now this is open. And all I'm going to do, there's 2 ways that I can do this. I can either use a Nostepine, and I'll do one with a Nostepine, and then I'll do one with knitting needles. So with the Nostepine, I'm just going to open it up. You can also use a marker. You can pretty much use anything that is round in shape, Sharpie markers, dry erase markers. I happen to have a number of Nostepines, so the Nostepine makes a perfect length as well. So all I'm going to do is loosely wrap. I don't want this Rolag to be too tight. I'm just going to wrap up to where that color changes and then gently pull like so. And there is the first one. Now, if I want to use knitting needles, I can do that as well. This one's going to be a little bit smaller. Roll it over, just like if you're pulling it off of a blending board. And so when you look at them, it's giving me just about the exact same. I've got a little bit more control with the knitting needle, but the Nostepine tends to go a little bit quicker. So I'm going to open some of these up. Okay, so as you can see, I have a basket full of beautifully rolled Rolags, or faux lags as they're called. I guess they're not true Rolags because they didn't come off the blending board. What was great is as I went through the braid, it was about 5 turns. So using my Nostepine, I knew that I could get 5 rolls pulled off and all of my colors came through. One of the other reasons why I chose to change the braid from spinning it this way to spinning it this way, talk a little bit about woolen and worsted. Spinning it this way, the fibers are all going to stay pretty much in the same direction and they're all going to be lined up, and that's going to give me more of a worsted end yarn. Even if I'm doing long draw, which is that semi-woolen type of spinning, I'm still getting rid of a lot of the air in there. By turning this braid into these fluffy Rolags, I'm going to be putting a lot of air back into my final yarn. And I do want my final yarn. So I've got 8 ounces here. They will end up all going on the loom at the same time, but my plan for this is going to end up as weft in a weaving project, and I want that final woven piece to be really light, airy, and fluffy. So now I am ready to sit down and finally get spinning today, which I'm very excited about. So the stew is still cooking, and here we go. So as I get started spinning, once I get going, keeping as much air in as possible, I am going to do long draw. Even out any pieces if I need to. Remember, long draw, you want to touch the yarn as little as possible. And what I'm doing up at the front is I am rolling it open just a little bit. So I'm not touching the fiber as it runs through my fingers. As I'm pulling back, I'm untwisting it just a little bit, and that makes it a little bit easier to draft out. And then when I'm ready for it to go onto the bobbin, that's when I let go. And we'll do a quick ply back. See what it'll look like. And there we go. Look how fluffy that is. That is absolutely gorgeous. Love it. Oh, and I didn't even think about it. It matches today's stew. The colors of the fiber actually matches our dinner. So as dinner finishes cooking, I am going to get a little bit more spinning done. Check my Instagram page for the final images of today's spin and Marmitako with chocolate wine. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you're setting and you have found some wonderful, I hope you have set some wonderful goals for this year's Tour de Fleece. And if you have the opportunity to check out some of the Tour de France, the world coverage over on Peacock is quite fun because the commentators historically have rated the land art that some of the villagers create for the cyclists to see and the drones to get images of as the drones fly over and get pictures of the city and some of the landmarks. So if you have the opportunity, check out the world broadcast on Peacock. As always, set some great goals for yourself during this Tour de Fleece. Thank you so much for checking in. Happy spinning.